Rise and shine, world changers. You are now tuned in to Wake the Sleeping Gods, the launchpad for creatives, entrepreneurs, and innovators looking to shatter the status quo while making a lasting difference on the world around them. I am Jean-Ronald. I'll be your host, putting the power to do loud good right at your fingertips. Today, we're continuing our deep dive into sustainability in the forests of Costa Rica. We'll be talking with Nunes, the co-founder of Rancho Mastatal, a remarkable sustainability education center that's been providing quality education in natural building, permaculture design, and wilderness medicine for the past 18 years. We'll be following her journey from New York to Mastatal to figure out what it really takes to create a sustainable future. To everyone out there with dreams of eco-villages and off-the-grid living, eyes up, Worldchanger. This one's for you.
Alright, so speaking of stories and how things start, we're gonna start just about now. Alright, so thank you, Robin, for being on. Robin Nunes is here with Rancho Mastatal. We're here learning about sustainability in the forests of Costa Rica. Thank you for coming on.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me.
So, let's get into it, and we're going to ask the simple question, where does a story like yours begin?
Oh, geez.
I know that's kind of tough with the beginnings of things, but let's start with, where were you born?
I was born in upstate New York, and I lived there, went to college in Colorado. While I was in upstate New York, I had a limited worldview. I thought everybody was kind of like my same people that I was interacting with, and thankfully my family was a little bit more diverse than the community that I lived in, and we went to Venezuela in the 1980s to see family, and my eyes were opened pretty wide to that everything was not upstate New York.
It's always a beautiful experience when you go to a different country and just realize that the system that you're in is like just one of many.
Yes.
And in that initial door opening, I feel like sparks so much creativity in people and possibility.
Exactly. I was about 8 or 10 years old, and so from that moment on, I think I realized that I wanted to live a little bit of a different lifestyle than what was around me.
What was prescribed for your environment.
Exactly.
Right. I agree entirely. So what was that family situation like? What did your dad do? What did your mom do?
My mom was a stay-at-home mom to take care of my sister and I, and my father was a nuclear scientist.
Nuclear scientist. That's crazy.
Yes.
So back then, what were your aspirations? What were you looking up to do? I know back then I really was caught up with being a hero. So I wanted to be a soldier, a firefighter, or an astronaut. One of those three. And I was dead set on it. What about you?
I wanted to change the world.
Even then?
Even then, interestingly enough, I went back a few years ago and saw an old high school friend of mine at the bar, and he said, after I told him what I'd been doing, he said, "You told me you were going to go out and change the world, and you did." I was like, "I told you that?" He's like, "Yeah." I was like, "Oh, I guess back then that's what I wanted to do."
It's really funny how the people from our past tend to hold on to tidbits that we completely forget and overlook, and then when we meet them again, they remind us of things that have become almost our life focus now. We didn't even realize that it existed.
Yeah.
Like for me, when I was younger, I loved climbing trees. I loved being out in nature, and one of the things I loved more than anything, I'd skip school to go work with when I was young, not high school, middle school, or anything like that, but preschool days, I'd beg my dad before he ran out the door. He worked for a gas company and he'd dig holes for septic tanks. So I'd beg him before he'd leave to take me with him, and then finally he decided to do it. We went to the store, he bought me this tiny gardening shovel that I thought was just a baby shovel. So I thought it was perfect me size. So we go out and we drive out and I just dig holes with him, and I loved it. And it's funny to see how things wind back to now, this is exactly what I'm doing, working with trees, working with digging, working with the soil. And I had so many things in between that, but it finds out that my life purpose is exactly where I started. So, what were you went to college, where'd you go to college?
In Boulder, Colorado. And so, I was looking for something a little different than, again, the upstate New York, New England thing, and I saw the mountains of Boulder, Colorado, and I said, I'm going there! And little did I know it was a liberal enclave, and so that just blew my mind, and the world of environmentalism came forefront into my.
You just kind of called your name.
Yeah, exactly. And so
Very nice.
from there, that kind of was the draw.
So you got your degree in in associates in environmental, what was it, ecology?
Social ecology.
Social ecology, yeah. So, and what led you to joining the Peace Corps? Because afterward you decided to, again, following the lines of making a difference, making an impact, I guess it's all led from the beginning to making a difference, making a change, making an impact. So tell us a little bit about that process.
My father really wanted me to become a lawyer, and so I was like, oh, I guess I could be an environmental lawyer. And I took the LSATs. I took the pre-test, the course to take the test. And after I took the test, my whole body was shaking, and I was crying, and I was like, that was the worst experience of my life. I'm glad I did that. I will not be a lawyer. And I was walking in the student union, and I saw pictures of like a Peace Corps, like a flyer, and I was like, it was my sophomore year, and I went in, I was like, I want to join, and they're like, come back in 2 years. So I then, tried to be an environmental lawyer. That was not for me, and so I applied and got in right after I graduated, and so I went to Uruguay and did some environmental work down in Uruguay.
Fair enough. So just going back to the early startup phase, what advice would you give to, let's say, young men and women in college who feel the same way? They want to make a difference, they want to make an impact, and they're thinking about joining up with something like the Peace Corps. What advice would you give to them ahead of time to prepare them for what comes next?
I would say don't be afraid of the commitment. The 2-year commitment was very scary to me. Like, oh my God, 2 years! I've now, this is just it's a whole world of time. But
especially after 4 years of college, now coming to 2 more years and somewhere you've never been.
Exactly, but to get that full, really rich experience, the 2 years was definitely needed, and was able to really, step away and make a difference and have time to learn the language, learn the culture, learn the community, how the community worked, and so not being afraid of making a commitment is probably.
So, now you've left behind America to join Peace Corps. You're doing some work in Uruguay. What type of work were you doing?
I was working with a small NGO, a non-governmental organization, a few concerned individuals that were concerned about the environment. So I worked with schools, I worked with the group themselves, trying to promote environmental education in a small rural community.
So so you started in upstate New York, then you went to Boulder, Colorado, found a liberal haven, and now you're in Uruguay.
Yes.
What was that transition like? Were you at that point craving the culture shock because you wanted to see different environments, or was that still something that kind of rattled you a bit?
Oh, I was craving it. I was ready just to see something else and experience something else. And
so originally I was going to ask, what was something that really shook you, but now I'm more curious to ask, what excited you? What was something that really, since you're craving culture shock, what was something that really that you chased when you got there?
I was just looking for the difference, just thriving in a different, seeing that there were people that lived so many different ways of life, and that just one way is not the way, that there are so many different ways, and I wanted to experience that.
Can you give us a little example of what's difference between, let's say, Boulder, Colorado, or the United States and Uruguay in the daily way of life?
Waking up and drinking some mate, sharing it amongst friends, and the pace was just much slower.
I definitely understand that. Me traveling back and forth between Haiti and the United States, seeing how in the United States everything seems to be running by, but yet people are still spending a lot of time sitting still. And when I went to Haiti, especially recently in my adulthood, recognizing that everything seems so slow, time seems to move slowly, but no one was sitting still. Everyone was finding something to do with their time. Everyone has something to do with their days. They fill their days. There's almost no sitting still. Whether it be washing a car, or looking for work, or visiting family and friends, they fill their days up to the max as soon as the sun goes down. And then they sit together and they joke, they play dominoes. It's a dynamic that just never stops. Where here it's like we're always looking for, well, in the United States, we're always looking for a pause, a moment to breathe, because everything is moving so fast. So when we do get those moments, we like to stay completely still. But so that's an interesting difference between different countries, and that just really opens you up to the difference between society, systems, and people. Yeah. And I definitely understand that's something I crave too. So you're working in Uruguay. How you're coming to the end of your time now? What's happening around that time period? You're going to come back to the United States. What was your plan?
I was traveling for about a year. I really wanted to be able to see a lot of other countries in South America while I was
chasing the culture shock.
Yes. While I was down there, I really wanted to see everything, and so I spent almost a year traveling all throughout South America and seeing all the sites and learning and exploring different cultures before I made my way back to Seattle, Washington, following my other love, Timoteo.
Ah, so you met Timo while you were in the Peace Corps.
Yeah, yeah.
Very nice, very nice. So you guys go to Seattle, Washington, you come back. So at what point does this idea for Rancho come to be?
Well, once I got back to Seattle, it was a big slap in the face. Car insurance, health insurance, rent! And my adjustment allowance that the Peace Corps so rightfully holds back until you get back, I spent traveling, and so I had to get a job right away. And unfortunately, I didn't get the job that I was dreaming about changing the world and continuing on that pathway, and I kind of fell into some just more normal jobs to pay the rent, to pay, you know.
But sometimes that's necessary because, like I said before, in accomplishing a great task and a great goal, you're going to have upsets. It's not always going to go the way you planned, but yet you still found yourself here.
Yes.
Like, you're working towards changing the world, creating a new paradigm, and despite having to go back and work 9 to 5 for a little bit, you still made your way here.
Yes.
And it was necessary in order to accomplish this.
Exactly. So yes, once we decided to do this, I worked at many different jobs and had a great time in Seattle. We're kayaking, telemark skiing, going to see live music, but there was the drive to do something better was gone. Or it was there, but I wasn't fulfilling it. And so we kind of were like, well, this is about time we're getting settled in here into this routine. Everything's wonderful, but we're not doing what we're supposed to be doing. And so when this started, we put our noses to the grindstone. And
so who came up with that idea?
it was a dream that Tim had with Dan, our original partners, who was a Peace Corps friend of ours. They like dreamed and schemed. They were in a different group than I was, and they dreamed and schemed of starting something like this in Brazil way back when, in the early 90s. But we didn't have any money, we didn't have a lot of experience, and we all just went our ways. And then Dan and his wife found this property here in Costa Rica and contacted Tim and said, hey, remember that dream we had? What do you think?
Yet again, that feeling of speaking about things, ideas, and like your dreams with people from the past, and then slowly that comes back to just being, hey, this is what you're going to do now. I like that. That's the way things come full circle. So, what went through your head when the idea first came up? Were you just like, even though you're getting settled, you're just like, yes, let's do this. It's time to change.
Yep, I'm a Aries, and so I'm pretty impulsive and fiery, and Timo's much more like methodical, and he thinks about things in a really long time. But I was like, yeah, let's do it. Let's go see the property.
So did you talk to your family and friends about this? What was the sentiment among your surroundings?
Well, we kind of just talked about it. Yeah, keep it to ourselves to first kind of like figuring it out, and then when finally after about 6 months of like going back and forth and dreaming and making this idea of a learning center a reality, I was like, okay, I'm done dreaming and talking about it. I got to go see the place. So we came down and we literally spent 3 days here. Nowhere else in Costa Rica. Just came right down here, looked at the property, went home and said, yeah, let's try it. What do we have to lose?
Beautiful. So you decided to do it. What does that mean? Like, to when you decide, there's dreaming and then there's actual doing things. Like
lawyers and money and
Yes.
all the unfun stuff that doesn't come into your dreams.
Exactly. So what does that actually look like to start a sustainability center in a different country?
Yeah, there's a lot. So yeah, we had to purchase the property first and get the money down here and figure it all out and make sure that what we were buying was actually really what we were buying. And I mean, just trying to make sure that it was all legitimate.
Was there like any international laws or regulations that got in your way, especially being Americans coming to Costa Rica?
Actually, in Costa Rica, as foreigners, you're able to own land, and so we did do some research to make sure that there weren't going to be land ownership issues, and Costa Rica's the government's very open to having foreign investment.
So for anyone who's listening to this, it's very important to look into these things before you buy. Like for example, for me in Haiti, if I were to buy a piece of land, I'd really have to get in contact with a government official, hire a lawyer, make sure, get everything written on paper, and even then you might still have some problems, especially when you're working in a foreign country. You have to really be sure what you're doing is legal to the T.
And
or else you can run into problems in the long run.
Exactly.
Do it right first so that you don't have to worry about it again.
Yes. Yep.
Okay. So, what were the earliest days of life in Mastatal like?
Wow, they're a lot different than
So you buy the property and now you're here.
Yes, so we thankfully had 2 houses, which was extremely important because we came down with tools and books, and if we had to be in tents until we were able to build a house, that would have been really hard. So we were very fortunate to have the 2 houses. And we had a group from rural Alaska 1 month after we arrived here.
So are you here willing to help and make this thing a possibility?
With that, we had, so when we bought the property, we stayed back in the United States for 1 year more so that we could amass capital and make a plan. And
what was that initial cost like? Was it in the thousands, the tens of thousands, the hundreds of thousands?
Hundreds of thousands.
Hundreds of thousands. And yet, still doing what you guys need to do, you made it a possibility. Despite the number of zeros, if you really commit to it, you can make it happen.
Yes, I think we were lucky.
A little bit of luck always comes in handy. But what I found is that when you're chasing your dream and your true passion, that little bit of luck tends to find you, especially in the right times. I call it synchronicity, some people call it other things, but it'll always find you as long as you're in the right place at the right time doing what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
And what were some of the roadblocks that caught you off guard? So now you have the property, you're here, you spent a year, you amassed the capital, and now you're here, you have a place to put your books, but what's something that kind of just like you didn't see coming?
Well, after we got here, thankfully we had the desire to set aside all of the land into a private wildlife refuge. So we went through the Ministry of the Environment to start that process so that we could show that we weren't like coming here and wanting to cut it all down. Like our intention was to conserve. And thankfully we started that because a year or 2 into living here, they decided that they were going to take all of this land and put it into a national park, and that included all of the land that we just spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on.
I can only imagine if you hadn't taken that process ahead of time, now your dream has been literally taken right out from underneath you.
Yes,
so
exactly.
Do the due diligence, figure out what it takes to actually make your dream a possibility and protect that dream for the long term. Alright, so getting back into it, so you're here, the dream is made, you have the property, and now it's 18 years on and you're still running successfully. What does it actually mean, from your perspective, to run a sustainability center?
A lot of work.
Of course,
from many different people. Yes, dedication to the dream, the ideal, believing in what you do, being fulfilled by what you do. I feel very wealthy because of all of the energy that I receive back from the place.
And I understand, like you mentioned, you feel very wealthy just by having this be your reality, for instance. And I feel that same way too a lot of days, where it's like, I might not be making a lot of money, but this is the world I wanted to create for myself, and I'm here. why do I need anything else?
Right.
So I definitely understand that aspect, and I know you're the bookkeeper for Mastatal. So speaking of wealth, what is something that's often overlooked on the numbers end of things when you're trying to achieve something like this?
Super important to have everything organized and done properly and to the law of the land.
So what does done properly or organization look like for you here?
So just making sure that we are following the protocols set by the Costa Rican government, making sure that all of the employees are on their, and the CAHA, which is their health insurance, their pensions, making sure that we have them insured, and all of the legal requirements of running a business are fulfilled. Yes.
Even if it's something like this where it's like a sustainability center, which is like not necessarily the conventional business,
right,
but you still have to live by those laws and fulfill them.
Yes.
And make sure they're taken care of, especially for working with locals and things
Exactly.
like that.
Exactly.
So, it's 18 years on. What was something you wish you had started doing from day one that you maybe have implemented later to make a better?
I think putting in more of the invisible structures. We kind of, in the beginning, were just like, yeah, come, live with us, help, you can do whatever you want. And having more defined roles and having structures in place to manage systems has been something that once we got them in place, we realized that how important they were.
So you mentioned invisible structures. A lot of people might not know what that means. Can you give us a little bit of an idea of what that means here?
Like how we have a core team. So we have many different teams here that run the place. So it's not just Tim and I. Tim and I are just the figureheads of the people who are crazy enough to start the place. But we, from the get-go, have had so much help. So we have a TICO team. So the TICOs are the Costa Ricans. And so they have, they work in many different areas on the farm and in the business, as well as we have a core team. And that core team is comprised of people who run systems on the ranch. And so the invisible structures are just ways how we interact with each other and how we make decisions and how we plan for the future.
So a lot of people take into account the regular business structure, recognizing I have a team that works on the farm, a team that works on the business side of things, like managing the accounting and stuff like that. But what they fail to realize is how these things interrelate with each other. Like, is that what you're referring to?
Right, especially because we live and work together. And so just developing these systems so that we know how to make decisions. Like, who's making the decision? Who has decision-making power? How does that work?
Especially with doing something like this, where there's such a diversity of tasks that need to be accomplished, it can't all funnel back to one place. That might overload, let's say, the management team to handle and manage all these things where they're not fully in place to understand what's being done in those systems. Like, so creating pathways of communication, per se.
Exactly.
Between business structure and
exactly.
team. I like that. That's definitely something, for instance, I never took into account. Like, I'm very focused on getting people who are in their positions, who know how to do things, and then I often feel overwhelmed when I'm being the founder of this, managing those systems, because all the systems come back to me, and now, not being an expert in those fields, I'm trying to tell the expert how to do their own job. So, and sometimes I feel like that's my job, because I'm the founder, I should know what needs to be done, and it's my vision, so I should point it in the right direction, but it might benefit people like me more to give more power to the different systems to make decisions. I can give advice or a perspective on something, but allow the people working in those fields to make their own decisions, with checks and balances, of course, but where it doesn't all fall back to one decision-making pattern.
Having a vision and vision statement, a mission statement, all that too is very helpful, so that you can go back to that and revisit that and make sure that everybody's on board and know where you're headed.
So pretty much paint the picture for all the teams to look at, so that if ever we get lost, we can go back and reanalyze our focus and see if we're actually aiming for that still or if we've veered somewhere.
Exactly.
Beautiful. So we're back. And now Mastatal is running. We've discussed running the organization, building invisible structures, achieving the dream, committing to the dream. But in 2008, I believe, you and Tim had a pretty interesting choice to make. You had just birthed your daughter Soledad, and it was time to decide raise her in Mastatal or go back to the United States. Was that even really a choice for you?
Wasn't even an option.
So tell us a little bit about that time and what you decided to do.
So we decided to have Soleil. Tim and I had been together for I think maybe 11 years or so prior to having Soleil, and so I was kind of ready. It was either we have a child or not, and I felt like we live in such a beautiful place and community, and this is such an amazing place to raise a child that we had to. We have to do this because this is such an amazing opportunity to offer a child.
But for some people who might be skeptical about raising, given I believe this is a beautiful setting, just that the comfort you feel in a setting like this, being connected to nature, to learning skills that you can take anywhere in the world, it's just such a rich environment for a child. But for anyone who's skeptical about raising a child in a foreign country, that what advice can you give when it comes to like making that decision?
Yeah, so I look around me. There's children thriving in this community and being supported by loving family members, and so I just wanted that for my child. I didn't want my child to be raised by somebody else in a child care system that I didn't know who was taking care of her or didn't know them very well, and then I had to go to work to pay for them to take care of my child, that I had to drive to do all the errands, and I wanted to be here in this community with my child, and I wanted my child to be able to go to a one-room schoolroom and know all of the children that was born and has been raised with, and that she knows every single member of the community. That to me sounded like a great thing. Yes, we're really far from hospitals. Yes, we're out in the middle of nowhere. Yes, there's snakes everywhere. But there's children here too.
For the record, I've yet to see a snake, and I've been here for about 5 days now, 5 to 6 days. They talk about it a lot. There's going to be snakes everywhere, poisonous snakes in Costa Rica. Prepare, prepare, prepare. And I've been here for 6 days and I haven't seen one. Not to say that there aren't any, just don't come back and call me out on this, but it's been pretty pleasant living here. So what you're trying to say is analyze the community you live in, one, see what the life is like for the children who are already there, and also focus more than anything on what type of life you want for your child. And if you can accomplish that here, then go for it.
Yeah.
Like we said before, as long as you commit to it and strive to achieve it, it's possible.
Exactly. And the high school option for my daughter, like I love the elementary school, the high school option, it's not what I would have wanted for her, but we have provided an amazing foundation for her, and I feel like what she wants to accomplish in life, she will be able to do, and she doesn't need to go to a boarding school. She doesn't need to go to this school or that school. She is who she is, and she will develop and realize that no matter where she is.
Exactly. No matter where you are, no matter where you start or come from, you can achieve anything you want to do as long as you're willing to chase the tools necessary to achieve them.
Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful. So, and now back a little bit to yourself. So you've been doing this for 18 years, and now you're a culinary expert, silversmith, skilled natural plasterer like we talked about. And even now, today, you're working on developing some new skills in that arena. You're pretty much the new Renaissance woman. You're redefining that term, except in the natural arena and the sustainable arena, and like really setting an example for what it means to accomplish goals and accomplish sustainable goals in the world. So, for anyone looking to follow in your path, like where would you say they start? And like, let's go from, let's say they're in high school now. Mm-hmm. If you're in high school and you're thinking about doing something like this, what do you do?
You dream and you write it down and you allow your mind to think of what it is that really excites you and that you want to commit to accomplishing, what it is that really excites you, that you really want to just do all the time.
So now you're in college, and like You know what you want to do. You've built your dream. How do you get there?
You just believe that you can do it, and you just go for it. And
do your due diligence, like
yes.
Dive into, do your research about
oh
what you...
yes. After we bought the property, the entire year we spent researching. This was just, that's all we did was read, go to the library, get more books on the internet, and just build, and we took a lot of courses. We took tons of different courses so that we were prepared for when we got here.
Beautiful. So, and that's why you needed 2 houses when you got here, because you had all your books and all your research to stow away. Beautiful, beautiful. So, and last but not least, most importantly, how can we help? If somebody's thinking about, they see this dream, they think it's beautiful, they might not want to do it themselves, or they might want to be a part of this. How, in what ways can we give back?
You can come down and see what we're doing. That's one way to support us, as well as trying to do something different in your life that creates a more just and sustainable world.
Thank you, Robin, for joining us.
Oh, thank you.
It's been a pleasure.
All right.